I feel like talking about what I'm doing should be the easiest thing in the world, but I'm finding it incredibly difficult. That being said, I'm going to do it anyway. This is my very first YouTube video, long form. I did a couple of shorts with the paintings that I'm showing now. This being my first video, the quality is not stellar, but I learned a lot while making it. Hopefully my next videos will be a lot clearer. So I'm actually painting with gouache in this particular painting. I'm using mostly gouache in this sketchbook. I like working with a variety of mediums. Right now, gouache is my favorite. I'm using traditional gouache medium, so it reactivates with water, similar to watercolor, but it's opaque. I've worked with acrylic paints for a really long time. I love acrylic. It is shinier, it's glossier, but also if you're using a sketchbook, even completely dry, sometimes the pages will stick together. So gouache is something that really works for me while I'm working on a bunch of small paintings, while I'm working on sharpening my skills a little bit. I have worked in a 3D space and digital animation and 3D work for a really long time at this point. I missed painting, so I decided to start doing physical paintings again. I use a lot of different art supplies. It's not all just going to be paint, but I love to paint, so that's what my focus is going to be. Another plus side with gouache specifically is because the paint can be reactivated, I'm not wasting paint. I walk away from my palette all the time. I know that wet palettes exist. I know that they're there. I've tried to use wet palettes, but I always forget about them and I end up wasting paint. That's not a thing. I can come back to the same palette for days. I can work a little bit at a time. I can do what I need to do. If I get called away and walk away, I can come back and it's the same palette, it's the same paint. I just got to drop a little water on it. So it really works for me. I do like watercolor, but because gouache is opaque, I find it to be a little bit more forgiving. Because gouache is water soluble, it's also easy to accidentally make things muddy. Sometimes when you're first starting out, I think it's easier to maybe use analogous colors so that if there's a little bit of mixing or lifting of colors whenever you're learning how to use it, you don't end up with just mud. I decided that I wanted to start filling up the sketchbook and fill it completely before I started any more large painting projects. I have a tendency to start large projects and I get distracted and move on. I think a lot of artists have this problem. But I have stories I want to tell. I have things I want to say. So I'm practicing my skill set. I'm getting a little bit better at telling a story with my paintings, and I'm focusing on finishing paintings. They don't have to be perfect. I'm just trying to work through them. I'm getting a little better with every one. I think the important bit is that not everything you paint, not everything you work on has to be a finished project. Not everything you do has to be perfect. And that's something I personally struggle with. So I'm going out of my way to fill a sketchbook with imperfect paintings, but they're still beautiful and I'm still having a lot of fun doing them. If you're somebody who struggles with perfectionism, I suggest you work in a sketchbook and fill it. Just fill it. Every single day, work on a page or a couple times a week, however much free time you have. Fill a page. It doesn't have to be perfect. Don't make it perfect. And for me, I find that like my rough sketches are some of my favorite sketches. I love the way a sketch looks. In fact, when I'm painting, I tend to hate the middle bit. I think a lot of people feel that way. I hate the middle bit. I always love the sketch, which is why I turn it into a painting. Like, this is amazing. I feel like it tells the story I want it to tell. I get halfway through the painting and I'm frustrated. It doesn't look how I wanted it to. It's not feeling the way I want it to. That being said, getting the paint on the paper allows me to take a step back and say, what do I not like about this? What's not working for me? And then I continue painting. It's not going to be perfect. It's not something that like when I'm finished, I say, oh my God, this is a masterpiece. But it's something that in a few days, after I've had a little time away, I can come back to and say, this is actually pretty good. I'm not sure why I was so angry with how this turned out. Sometimes you just have to walk away from it a little bit. It's important to approach a sketchbook with the understanding that these are not necessarily going to be finished pieces. I think the practice bit and the exploration bit and knowing that this isn't something you're going to frame and put on a wall. Maybe it is. Maybe you change your mind later. But knowing that in a sketchbook, this is about exploration and learning what you're doing and figuring out how to have the effects that you want and maybe a larger painting later. I think all of that's really important. I think painting in a sketchbook, I think drawing in a sketchbook every single day or as often as you can is what's going to make you a better artist. Working in a sketchbook allows me to be satisfied with a less refined piece of work, I guess. I can work something into the ground, and typically I would just keep painting past the point where like, oh man, I'm kind of starting to like this. And then I would keep working at it and then feel like I ruined it. The sketchbook gives me a little bit of permission to just stop. Just stop and take a break and walk away. And 9 times out of 10, when I come back to something I've been working on or I had worked on a few weeks earlier, I like it. I'm able to look at it a little bit more objectively. So I'm trying to improve myself, how I work, and how I feel about my work by working through the sketchbook, by doing small paintings, doing small pieces, getting to a point where like, this is okay for now, and then I can come back to it later, and if I'm not satisfied, I'll add something, or I will make a change, I will fix a line, or I can come back to it and be like, you know, I really enjoy how this looks. I'm gonna leave it. And I feel like that's really important because the styles that I like tend to be a little bit more rough. They tend to be a little bit more painterly, and I'd like my style to reflect that. Unfortunately, in the past, I have worked pieces to the point where everything was a smooth line, everything was completely refined to a point where it didn't have that painterly feel anymore. So I'm trying to grow as a person, and I think working in my sketchbook is allowing me to improve in the ways that I want to improve. I'm never going to be an artist who works on fully photorealistic images. That's not really my jam. So rather than trying to strive for a style that I have no interest in mastering, I'm giving myself permission to not finish every single piece. And I'm having fun with it, and I hope you're having fun watching me do it. I like the story of a painting. I like the brush strokes. I like lines. I like seeing the layers. I like it to speak a little bit. I like it to look like a painting, if that makes any sense. So I'm trying to let go of what I think needs to happen for a piece to be finished and just work on stuff. And only work to the point that I'm like, hey, I'm starting to like this, and then maybe let go of the rest of it. Refinement can only go so far, right? Working professionally as an artist for so long, I've learned that sometimes good enough really is good enough, and I'm trying to apply that to my personal work. So instead of working a painting to death, and sometimes past the point where I can even come back and like it, sometimes good enough really is good enough. I make a point to step away from a painting when I start doing what I feel like is overworking it. And a lot of times when I come back a few days later, I like it. I'm pretty happy with where it is. Sometimes it takes a little space just to be objective for me. I find that working in a sketchbook allows me to work on a piece, but not finish a piece. And I can come back to it later and go through my sketchbook and be like, oh, wow, I actually really like this. I'm glad that I didn't keep pushing past the point where I was having fun. I think it's really important to do artwork that is just for fun and not necessarily a finished piece that is going to be hung on a wall. That takes the pressure out of it. It allows you to learn. It allows you to enjoy the just art of it. That being said, I do love a finished piece. I do love working on something and getting a larger idea from it. I think working in a sketchbook and painting regularly in a sketchbook allows you to explore those ideas without any of the pressure of this has to be finished and I have to do it a certain way and it has to be a certain size. None of that. The things I'm painting now are not strictly within what my style has been over the past, I don't know, my entire life. Working without the pressure of a finished piece is allowing me to kind of work outside of what I would normally paint. I really like fantasy and kind of creepy and a little bit of horror, but pretty. And the sketchbook is allowing me to take these larger ideas and make them a lot smaller. I've always wanted to feel like I need this whole piece, I need this whole scene. That's not necessary. Right now, I'm painting faces. I'm enjoying painting faces. It's a really simple exercise that's helping me get better, that's allowing me to have a little bit of fun. I'm pretty happy with how this woman turned out. I had a couple moments there in the middle where I hated her. That happens often for me. But I'm pretty happy with how she turned out. I had fun painting her. I plan to keep on painting faces and things and stuff. If you've ever struggled to just be done with a painting, no matter what you do, you feel like it's unfinished, I'm right there with you. I don't know that I've ever finished a painting that I felt was finished. I even sold a painting once that I felt was completely unfinished. I had so many more plans for it, but the person who had commissioned the piece for me was like, "Oh my God, it's perfect. Why would you do anything else to it?" Which I thoroughly appreciated, but I didn't feel it was done. I'm using my sketchbook, I'm using these exercises as a way to lean into the good enough is good enough idea. Sometimes I don't have to work myself into the ground finishing a painting. I feel like my sketches and the final painting rarely look the same. Sometimes they have the same feeling, but they don't always match. And I'm just trying to lean into the magic of being an artist and allow the whims of creativity to take me for a ride. Also, working smaller in the sketchbook, I know none of you know this about me. I typically work in a lot of blues and greens. Most of the color choices I've made are completely new to the way I usually work. There's a lot of pinks and yellows, and it's a lot more vibrant than I usually work. And I think that's just another one of the pluses of doing small, low stress pieces. I'm just trying things out. I don't feel the stress like I need to love this. I'm having fun and I'm really loving the color choices. I need to work in brighter colors. I'm having a lot of fun exploring. Maybe I'm really inspired by the springtime. I'm really enjoying painting with all the pinks and yellows. I'd like to start painting more flowers. I've done a lot of little monsters. I'm a big fan of little creatures and monsters. Maybe we'll get around to that. But right now I'm leaning really heavily into springtime vibes. In the next few weeks, I'll try and start working on larger pieces. I'll probably make videos of my process, maybe a few how-tos or tutorials. For now, I just wanted to introduce myself. I really appreciate you watching my videos. I know you don't have to, so thank you so much. On an incredibly random side note, do you guys believe in ghosts or like Bigfoot or aliens? I've had some creepy stuff happen in my house. And I say that because I just heard a weird noise. Just curious, let me know in the comments. I encourage everyone to reach out. I'll do my best to answer comments. I'd love to have a conversation with you. I think for me, making the artwork and the videos and even editing the videos, I find it to be a lot of fun. I am very much struggling with talking openly about my process and who I am and what I'm doing. But I'm doing my best, and I think it's going to be worth it. I got sent home back when COVID happened to work from home. It was supposed to be temporary, like everybody's work from home, and mine turned out to be permanent. We moved out of state. We, got settled close to my husband's family, and it's been really wonderful. I've been very lucky to work from home, but I've also been lacking in community. And I'm hoping that I can build a little bit of a community here. I've been an artist my entire life. I've been working as an artist for a long time. I went to not traditional art school, but like a animation school, essentially. And this is the first time in my life I think I've been completely without community. I spend a lot of time on YouTube. I watch a lot of artists that I enjoy. A big part of being an artist has been the conversation around art with other artists. Being home for so long without that community has been, I think, detrimental to my personal art. I have a lot fewer people to discuss what I'm working on, what I'm interested in, what they're working on, what supplies they're using. I spend a lot of time on YouTube figuring out what other people are trying. I started using gouache because I saw a YouTube video that talked about how versatile it could be and how it is opaque, but it still reactivates with water if you use a traditional gouache and not an acrylic gouache. So I decided that YouTube was somewhere that I wanted to try building a space. I decided that YouTube was somewhere I wanted to try building a community. I'd like to hear from you. I'd like to know, what art supplies are you using? What have you been looking to for inspiration? I encourage everyone to reach out. I'll do my best to answer comments. In my next video, I'm going to be working with some of the sketchbook supplies that I've gotten this past year. The most recent box was the May box, and it's their alcohol marker 10th anniversary edition set. So we'll be looking at those, and I hope to see you there. If you've enjoyed watching me paint and you like listening to me talk, I'd love you to come back. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think about my video. If you have any tips on filming that could make this easier, I would really appreciate it. Thanks for your time, and I hope to see you again soon.